Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Yeah, here I be. How you doing? Welcome to the show. Does my voice sound deeper than usual? It does to me. I don't know, I was on the way to a friend's last night and literally sneezed the entire way. And it is true. That's not, that is true. I'm about to say what I was thinking is true. That you can't keep your eyes open when you're sneezing. And so when you're having a sneezing attack and you're driving your car, that's dangerous. Because my eyes kept closing when I sneezed. And I was thinking, maybe you're supposed to, if you're a responsible driver, pull over to the side and sneeze away. But this continuing to drive while sneezing uncontrollably seems irresponsible. And I suspect it was, but I did continue, didn't hit anything I shouldn't, and here I am telling the story. But yeah, it's a little unsettling. Anyway, I feel, of course, what I'm hearing, as you know, the sound of your own voice is different when it's coming from inside your own head. Speaking of sound, and just one more little item before we get into the horrors of the day. There are roofers still on my roof, directly over my head. And they're very quiet right now. They do know from 10 to 11 they should try to be, and I'm grateful. But before 10, they were not being quiet. And I don't know, I think there's 3 of them up there, and one of them's clearly the boss. And he keeps screaming at one poor soul. And it seems as if the soul he's screaming at is either incompetent or lazy or both. He keeps squawking at him. Look, I've done this, don't say. And I'm thinking, oh my God. First of all, I'm thinking, for all I know, that he's the guy who's screaming has reason to be screaming. On the other hand, hearing anyone berated like that on the job is, it's hard for me not to feel immediate empathy with and outrage for the poor soul. But then I'm thinking, I'm paying that poor soul, and if he's fucking up my new roof, I'll kill him myself. I don't know. So I don't know what's going on up there. God help us. I once worked for a man who owned a bunch of radio stations, and he was that kind of boss who must have reveled in humiliating employees in front of others. And he did it once to me, and he wasn't berating me, he had me in the situation of having to sit there while he did it to a coworker. And that was, I literally wanted to kill the guy. You wonder about people, that's like a Trumpian characteristic. I mean, you wonder about people like that who have true power over people and abuse it like that. And there's something incredibly sadistic about people willing to use their power to humiliate and terrify other people. I think he's screaming at him again. Okay, I'll talk louder so that you don't have to hear that. Okay, so, and oh God. So anyway, oh Lord, jeez. Why are people so... Why aren't people better? Who's responsible, for God's sake? Honest to Pete. Hang on, I'm sorry. I'm getting texts. I'm getting things. Oh, that's weird. That's from my son dissing Gavin Newsom. And I don't know what he's got him all riled up. Did Gavin Newsom do something? Why would he be... Listen, there's plenty of people to be upset about, but Gavin Newsom ain't anywhere near the top of my list. As a matter of fact, a caller brought that up, I think, when Susan was on the show last week, about whether he was having a disagreement with his wife. One of them thinking Gavin Newsom's trolling of Trump was wonderful, and the other thinking it was not, and not the proper way to fight, and that it was just, dragging us all down into the same gutter. I disagree. I have gotten a kick out of it. But it is true. Since he opened this gate, you just see it all over the place. So many people doing these all caps rants now. So we live in a world now because of social media and this technology that the worst ideas can spread like wildfire and do. And it seems as though what catches people's attention and thus gets more attention, and it just starts multiplying and multiplying, is usually stuff that is cruel or harsh. I don't know. It's not a good time, guys. Just not. I was looking for somebody that I'd read saying that what Newsom was doing, and this is the way I had reacted to it, what he's doing by putting out the same nonsensical kind of stuff Trump does is reminding people of how insane it is that we have a president who does this, who communicates with the people of the country in these rants and all caps and craziness. And how what Newsom doing it shows us is that in fact we're used to Trump doing it. So you don't hear outrage over Trump's latest Truth Social post or whatever, because he's been doing it forever. And the rules don't apply to him. Ever. And Newsom, by doing what he's doing, is showing, not trying to explain it, but just showing what we should be feeling when Trump acts the way he does. So all the coming down on Newsom is because he's considered a normal person. He doesn't get the pass. I don't know if I'm not describing this right, but the thing I had read was that there is a double standard, and it's in the national media, and it has permeated into all of our heads, in that Trump gets a pass. But the minute someone else does what he regularly does, we react the way we used to react before Trump, with admonitions and this isn't proper, this isn't right, where will this take us? And because we've given Trump a pass, there's even a term that's been created. I think it was created because of Trump. The way media cover him often, it's called sane washing. So he'll have some diarrhea-like crap on Truth Social that makes no sense at all, but media will sane wash it. We'll pick the sort of germ of what he's communicating to us and then report that, and leaving aside the craziness of the delivery. No one else gets that pass. And it has brought us to this pretty pass. When media sane wash his bizarre, insane, crazy statements to make sense of them for us, they are serving him. When they do that, they take out the crazed, maybe the reference to a windmill out of nowhere, or the shark. What was that thing he once said? We'd rather be eaten by a shark or whatever. I mean, this is crazy. And Newsom doing it, and then people reacting to his doing it is interesting. And I think Newsom, I don't know if he can go on forever. By the way, it's a young woman who's doing Newsom's tweets, the trolling, the often very, very funny stuff that is being put out. I saw a profile of her. She's obviously very funny and pretty damn astute, but it's not Newsom himself. Yeah, and Mary is saying, and yeah, they said Reagan was the Teflon president. Remember that? Oh, man. No, Trump is way beyond Teflon, obviously. Obviously. Really unbelievable. Ay. So, that being said, there are two things that particularly stood out that I've read since last we spoke. And you know how odd it is that the outrage, not du jour, the outrage du hour, do every 10 minutes. When I sat down this morning to sort of make a list of things I wanted to be sure to, share with you, I forgot all about the raid on John Bolton's house. I did the whole thing, and I thought, yeah, I think that sums it up. And then I happened to see something about Bolton. And I thought, my God, I've already forgotten that. Well, because again, this is the fact that we're all constantly kept off balance as the next outrage comes, and it's the strategy used by tyrants to and those usurping power to make sure that those who might get in their way are just flummoxed, are befuddled and flustered because they don't, they're being peppered with one outrage after another. And so we end up playing whack-a-mole and getting nowhere and not just stepping back and taking the time to come up with some kind of, I don't know what, strategy. Heather Cox Richardson Milton's saying that Bolton's raid happened on Friday. Yeah, I know. I wasn't, so I'd never been able to speak about it. I wanted to speak about it. I was so disgusted by it and frankly frightened by it, because it shows they're going to start. I mean, he really, when Trump tells the truths he tells are the worst of, he tells us and has always exactly what he intends to do. So let me tell you something. When he does shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, let's not express any shock, okay? Because he said he was going to avenge himself. He ran this time. The people who voted for him knowingly voted for him, and I suspect maybe that's why they voted for him, because he said he was going to take revenge against his enemies. Which is why you see now the very law enforcement officials that went after the January 6th felons are now in jeopardy, often have lost their jobs and are in jeopardy of God knows what. And the people who stormed the Capitol are free as birds, lauded as heroes. And some of them now members of Trump's administration. So I wanted to share with you something that Heather Cox, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell my son to don't do this during the show. It derails me. I got a roofer screaming on top. I got my son coming in and saying, "Look at this!" on the side, and I didn't hear you sit. Okay, so Heather Cox Richardson, the historian, reminded us over the weekend of what we've lived through with the Republicans, and she goes in the last 30 years. Okay, so this would be, I think it's post-Reagan, right? Or maybe there's slight overlap there, I'm not sure. But she starts with a guy who's still out there, a loathsome character who once had extraordinary power in the Republican Party of the day, and that is Newt Gingrich. He, as you'll recall, was the Speaker of the House. And she points out that if you go back to 1994, okay, seems like so long ago, but Gingrich then was the Speaker of the House. The Republicans had managed to take the House from the Democrats for, listen to this, the first time since the mid-50s. That people's house, the lower house, had always, at least in my lifetime, been heavily Democratic. And when Gingrich took, and the Republicans took the House, they started right away the kind of actions that we see now as the fruition of their actions. Because Richardson said Gingrich set out determined to destroy the modern government that these Democrats, who'd had so much power for the prior 35, 40 years, had created. The administrative state. And Gingrich determined that the only way you destroy the government, drown it in a bathtub. Only way you do it is by destroying the Democrats. And so he started the name-calling stuff. He accused the Democrats of being traitors. He used the word traitors. Of corruption. Under him, the House launched investigations without any evidence whatsoever about voter fraud. So there's nothing new with what's going on now. And Richardson reminds us that by the end of the 1990s, Republicans clearly decided that the power of their party was the ultimate goal. As she put it, party trumped country, because they truly believed that they were in a fight for the soul of America and that they were on the right side. No pun intended. And in order to pull it off, they had to start messing with the vote, because that's where Democrats always had them. And she said, and it starts happening. 1998, Florida, the legislature there passed a law that purged over 100,000 black voters. She doesn't go into reminding us how they pulled that off, but she threw them out. They threw them out. That was 1998. 2 years later, 2000. When presidential candidate Al Gore won the popular vote, but was 4 votes short of winning the Electoral College, and the contest came down to Florida, and they had put out a ballot that had confused voters, and so people, no, you remember. But do you remember those Republicans storming, actually physically storming the place where those votes were being recounted? Again, so violence and intimidation. They literally attacked the place in Miami to stop the recount, claiming that there was fraud going on. And anyway, as you'll recall, it ended up at the Supreme Court, which had 5 Republican-appointed justices, and they stepped in and said George W. Bush is the president. And then when Barack Obama got elected, the Republicans lost their minds, right? And you'll recall they were public about the fact that they were not going to, in any way, help him pass anything, even if they agreed with it. And that was Gingrich again. He said, for the next 2 years, we will not let him succeed in anything. That is our ticket to coming back. And then the Supreme Court, ever desirous of helping, in 2010, they overturned a century of campaign finance laws and permitted corporations and other outside money to flow directly into our elections, as you know. And that was the beginning of the wholesale corruption of the system. And then the Republicans at the state level started redistricting. I mean, there was literally a handbook for them called Red Map. And so they redistricted in Florida and Wisconsin and North Carolina, Ohio and Michigan, and yeah. And then, just 3 years later, the Supreme Court did another help. They gutted the Voting Rights Act. And they said, there's no more racism. So we don't need no stinking law that requires states with a history of racial discrimination to have any changes to their voting rules overseen by the Department of Justice. And so, as soon as that Supreme Court ruling came down, Republican-led states started restricting voting rights immediately. And then she mentions the importance of talk radio, because she says, she places it in 1987. She said after 1987, talk radio was overwhelmingly this right-wing stuff, Rush Limbaugh, and it fed all of those people's heads with misogyny and racism. Black people were doing this and that, women were taking over, blah, blah, blah. Then 94, Fox News comes in, and there you have it. And in 2016, Trump comes down the escalator and, using the same game book, just picked it up and carried it over the finish line. I don't know. It's good sometimes to look back to see that, how things happened and why we might miss them in the moment. But there's a problem. Because very, very few people are choosing to be in the moment. And I read a piece, the headline of which told me that maybe there was going to be some hope to be had. And so I thought, I need to stop reading all this stuff that reinforces my, just normal pessimism. And it was a piece in The Atlantic written by Adrienne LaFrance, excuse me for my voice. And it was titled "A Ticking Clock on American Freedom. It's later than you think, but it's not too late." It was that last phrase, "not too late," that I glommed onto. But then I read it. And frankly, after reading it, I'm not so sure that it isn't too late. I'm not kidding that it's over. That this country's democracy really didn't even make the 250-year mark. I'll share a few things in this piece. Look around, take stock of where you are, and know this. Today, right now, right this second, you have the most power you will ever have in the current fight against authoritarianism in America. Right now. Because by this afternoon, she's saying, you will have less power. This reporter went out and talked to people who have gone through this. Kasparov in Russia, a journalist, Maria Russi in the Philippines, and others. And what she heard from them, loud and clear, is we are running out of time. The Filipina Maria Russi, who ended up winning the Nobel Peace Prize because of her courageous work against Rodrigo Duterte, who, by the way, is now in jail, right? Where he had put her on trumped-up charges. But he's now in jail at The Hague. He ain't going anywhere. And she is now free, and free to warn us. And the one thing she kept saying is, these authoritarians topple democracies faster than you can imagine. And if you wait to speak out, to act against them, you're finished. So she has watched with astonishment at the speed with which Trump and his guys have destroyed so much so quickly. And she says, just, it is, we keep saying this, it's just classic authoritarianism. While citizens are busy processing their shock over this shattered norm or disregarded law, Trump's already on to the next shattered norm or disregarded law. What I was saying earlier, we're just constantly kept off balance by the torrent of malfeasance. And she says, this is the playbook that authoritarians have used always. First, The leader removes all those in the government with expertise and independent thinking and replaces them with leaders who don't know shit. She didn't say that. But they're arrogant. They're ignorant. But most importantly, they're loyal to the leader. You look at your Department of Defense now, your Department of Defense. It's his. It's not ours. You look at his Department of Justice. You look at his FBI, his national security apparatus. And it now all is there, not to protect us, but to protect him. And this Adrienne LaFrance writes that, between the time I write this sentence and the moment when this story will be published, the federal government will lose hundreds more qualified, ethical civil servants. And even higher numbers of principled people in positions of power will be fired. It's still happening, right? Or will resign, or will be pushed out. What Trump is trying to do with the member of the Fed, a black woman. There's the outrage. A black woman who always is voting with Jerome Powell. They're trumping up some kind of, when they go after these people, you see what they're doing. Somehow Adam Schiff, Letitia, was it James in New York State, and the one who prosecuted Trump, and the woman at the Fed, they're all under investigation for mortgage fraud. I guess it's something where if you dig around in people's real estate history, you can always find an uncrossed T or an undotted I, and you go after them for that. I don't know if it was Stalin or somebody who said, tell me the man, show me the man, and I'll tell you the crime. He said, you want someone jailed? You want to execute somebody? Just tell me who it is, we'll find the crime. And we are seeing that now in America. Bolton, Letitia James, Adam Schiff, all these other people who are under investigation, the woman at the Fed, it'll just go on and on. So, and she says this, these are not uncertain times. Not really. We just want to feel they are because we can't bear what the certainty seems to be. And the trick of dictators is that they tell you exactly what they're going to do ahead of time. They use repetition. My God, is that a Trumpian trait, right? Stop the steal, Russia hoax, stop the steal. An authoritarian repeats lies over and over again until they become accepted. But he also repeats truths. And here she says what I had said before. You tell people you're going to take revenge. You tell people you're going to get away with murdering somebody. And then they'll be primed that when it happens, they won't, they'll say, oh yeah. They'll be ready for it. And then she points out how social media is a tool that the dictators of the past didn't have. And it didn't stop them. But the dictators of today It is an astonishing tool. Because the lies, the intimidation can spread so fast. Anyway, back to this woman in the Philippines who did end up being imprisoned on all kinds of trumped up charges, was facing over 100 years in jail, and never backed down from anything. She was heading a newspaper there. And when it became clear that this new president of the Philippines was going to take away press freedoms, as Trump already has, listen to how smart she was. And you tell me if this is going on at any of our newspapers or at the news networks. She created what was called a shutdown plan. She and her staff of reporters actually ran drills on how to continue functioning if they were raided, if their website was shut down. She made sure that they had servers in other countries. So if Duterte shut down the servers trying to shut them up, they could move quickly to one he couldn't get his hands on. And you know where she put her paper servers? In the United States. Because she figured that America, the land of the free, would be the place for her to attempt to safeguard freedom of the press in the Philippines. So she tucked away other servers here in case theirs was shut down by the government. And just so you know, she is now saying that if American newspapers and media are not doing the same, then they're in big, big danger. Isn't that something? So I'm just so sick of reading stuff from so many people still in the papers, as if this, talking about the midterm elections, talking about all of this stuff like it's just normal, like we're living in some kind of normal times with a slightly bizarro president, and but the pendulum swings. Yeah. I hate to be so filled with doom and gloom, but I am a realist. So, that's what I think. And this poor Kilmar Abrego Garcia, man, I mean, that his is a name we just know. He unwittingly became, plucked from the thousands upon thousands of people who are now living in terror and being abducted and having their families destroyed. And Jesus H, the cruelty is so extreme. There's a bill in the House now that will allow the so-called emergency deployment of the National Guard in the nation's capital to go from the 30 days by law, it is allowed to 6 months. And then, of course, if that gets through, it'll be added onto and added onto. Chicago is, I guess, next up. Apparently, military intervention in Chicago has long been part of the planning. And so, guys, armed American military deployed in strategic cities. You tell me, do you think these people will ever willingly give up this power they have, and that they continue to grab? Trump's declared, what, over 30 emergencies. And when a president declares an emergency, used to be they really waited for an emergency. He doesn't. He just makes them up. That gives him the power of a dictator. And we just stand here. And the media just covers it. And I'm ready to just run screaming into the streets like a mad woman. I really am. I feel like I'm being driven mad. So now let me share with you one thing I read that gave me hope. Believe it or not. It was a piece written by a Republican, a current office holder in a red state. I mean, in a totally mucked up red state, Oklahoma. Oklahoma was in the news this weekend because it turns out they actually have a test that they have created that they give to any teachers who move to Oklahoma and want to teach, but they're coming from California or New York. Do you believe that? And it's a test to see if they are true patriots. This, guys, is fascism, okay? So let me tell you about this. There's a mayor in Oklahoma, and he's the mayor of, I don't know, must be perhaps the biggest, it might be the biggest city, might not, I don't know. What, Oklahoma City. He's the mayor of Oklahoma City. It'd be either Oklahoma City or Tulsa, I'm sure. He's also the president of the United States Conference of Mayors. And he's a Republican. And he's a Native American. I don't even know how all those things go together. He's a member of the Osage Nation. And he wrote a piece that so warmed my heart. And how the hell, even in Oklahoma, in a city in Oklahoma, this wondrous man was reelected mayor. And the title of his piece was, "Diversity is not reverse bigotry," which is, of course, what the war on DEI is all about, because that's what they want people to believe. Affirmative action is reverse bigotry. It's bigotry against white men. I'll share with you some of what he writes. One of the things that make America great is our collective resolve that every American should have the equal opportunity to succeed. We have never fully achieved this, but the Constitution gives us the tools to try, and we have used them. And as a result, the arc of American history has bent toward greater equality for 249 years. passing through the Civil War, women's suffrage, the civil rights movement, Obergefell versus Hodges, gay marriage, and other milestones. And then he says, but of course, that progress has always met with resistance. And he said, and now we are hearing a lot of talk that portrays the drive for equal opportunity as a form of reverse discrimination. And sometimes this language is actually cloaked in patriotism, but it is really just repackaged bigotry, misogyny, and racism. To cast equal opportunity as a threat rather than a goal is to move backward. He tells a personal story. He said, when I took office in 2018, the mayor's conference room was adorned with the images of all 34 former mayors of Oklahoma City. Every one of them were white. 33 of the 34 were men. So in the room where it happens, those images were a stark reminder that our efforts for equal opportunity have fallen short. He goes on to explain that about 60% of the children in that city are not white, and more than half of the city is female. So when he became the mayor, he proclaimed Indigenous Peoples Day, Pride Month, all of those things, attended them, celebrated them, all of that. And then he started changing the way the government looked. He says the positions now held by people of color in the Oklahoma City government have tripled, and the seats held by women have doubled. I have appointed women to chair 9 of the 10 boards we have created since 2018. Now, again, this guy was elected as a Republican. And he says, my electoral coalition included a broad spectrum of the city, partly because we do not have partisan primaries. Voters consider candidates of all parties and positions, and if no one receives a majority, the 2 top vote getters compete in a runoff. And when he was first elected, he won in a runoff 78% of the vote. The second time he ran, they came for him after doing all of what he had done. But he still won. I wonder if he'll win next time. And then he tells this story, and there is a picture of it along with his opinion piece. It just blew me away. On the day I took office in 2018, we respectfully relocated the pictures of the former mayors. In their place now on the walls of the mayor's conference room hang 20 images of Oklahoma City kids. By gender and ethnicity, they are demographically representative of the kids of Oklahoma City. And those young faces gaze down on us and remind us that the decisions we make in this room will affect them most of all. And hopefully all the kids of Oklahoma City, regardless of race or gender, will increasingly believe that they can grow up to sit at the head of that conference room table or any other table in America's 20th largest city. In our current color parlance. But I'm in awe of what he's done and the courage he shows as a Republican in a position of power and an elected position in a red state to speak truth. Diversity is not reverse bigotry. And yet, you have what? Universities? You got universities falling over, paying fines, totally trumped up crapola, supposedly because they had diversity programs that discriminated against white people. There was a piece about the first black president of George Mason University, which is, by the way, the largest public university in Virginia. And man, they're gunning for him. Headline, New York Times, Saturday, officials demand apology from George Mason president. A public apology because the Department of Education has begun a federal civil rights investigation about what they term unlawful promoting of diversity at George Mason. This is just, again, constant. And the cravenness of our universities, in large part, in the face of this, is just mind-blowing. This is why I have such little hope. Because the only way we push back is for there to be resistance. And they're writing checks. They're signing checks over. And I don't know if this is related, but the president of Howard University surprised everybody by saying he's stepping down. And it says, although the Trump administration has not punitively targeted Howard, it did seek to cut the government's contribution to the school by up to $240 million. No, $64 million. Whatever. I'm just, guys, our America is gone. It's gone. We're living in a police state. It's as simple as that, okay? We're living in a police state. We're not sliding toward authoritarianism or fascism. We've arrived. Make no doubt about it. Make no doubt.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.